Okay, let's get into this. Today, July 8th, 2025, something pretty major just happened. It's sending some serious ripples through, well, both legal and religious circles.
Absolutely. So today we're going to do a deep dive into this ongoing investigation. It's got, frankly, huge implications.
We're talking about a really complex situation, a high-stakes legal and moral crisis involving the Unification Church, a globally recognized name.
That's right. And its leader, Han Haksha. Our mission here is really to cut through all the noise, pull out the key information from the latest reports, the legal analyses.
And basically give you a clear understanding of the allegations, what's happening legally right now, and what this could all mean. The potential consequences are, well, potentially seismic for the organization and its followers worldwide.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut. You get the crucial insights without having to wade through everything yourself.
It's a story that really touches on big themes, doesn't it? Power, faith, accountability, and the very real human side of these massive investigations.
Definitely. So let's kick things off with the breaking news, the immediate spark. Today, the special prosecutor team, the one led by Min Jong-ki, they took some very decisive action.
A decisive action. Okay, what did that actually look like? What happened today?
Well, we saw raids on the National Investigation Headquarters of the National Police Agency right here in Seoul.
Wow, okay. Raiding the police themselves?
And also the Chuncheon Police Station up in Gangwon Province. And these weren't just, casual visits.
No, I imagine not.
The stated reason was to get hold of data related to an alleged cover-up, a cover-up specifically tied to an investigation into the Unification Church.
And they were looking at specifics?
Yeah, they did forensic analysis on a computer, specifically from the Chuncheon Police Station's security division. They're clearly looking for something concrete there.
Okay, an alleged cover-up implies there was something to cover up. What's the backstory? Where did this initial investigation come from?
Right, so you have to go back to 2022. That's when the Chuncheon police started looking into intelligence they received.
About what exactly?
About Unification Church officials allegedly involved in overseas gambling, big money gambling.
Okay. And the cover-up allegation. Who does it point fingers at?
The core claim involves a former world headquarters chief, identified as Yoon Mo. The reports say he got help from Jan Seong-bae, who's linked to a legal consulting group called Jeonjinbaepsa, help specifically to suppress that initial gambling investigation.
And there's another layer to this, isn't there? Something potentially quite explosive.
Yes. Our sources also suggest possible involvement, or alleged involvement, I should say, of a close aide to former President Yoon Suk-yeol. The allegation is that this aide tried to quash the investigation, too.
Okay. That adds a whole political dimension,
Yeah.
potentially. Wow.
It really complicates things, and it shifts the focus from just the cover-up to what many are now calling the main event, the fatal crisis for the Unification Church itself.
Right. Which brings us to Han Hakja, the de facto leader. She's now central to this whole thing.
Absolutely central. She's been formally indicted, named as a key suspect, and they've already put a travel ban on her.
And the main charge against her. It's pretty serious, isn't it?
It's staggering, really. The allegation is she spent at least 60 billion Korean won. That's what, around 43 million US dollars?
$43 million. On what?
On overseas gambling, including, reportedly, at the MGM casino in the US. And this wasn't just a one-off, it was supposedly over several years.
That kind of money.
Yeah.
Where did it allegedly come from?
That's the core of the embezzlement charge. The allegation is it was members' donations, church assets, diverted for her personal use.
So not her personal money, church money.
Precisely. And this connects to other threads, too. There's another former World Headquarters chief, Yun Young-ho. He's already under investigation for, well, hundreds of billions of won.
Hundreds of billions. For what?
Bribes, embezzlement, high-value lobbying, including, allegedly, lobbying Kim Keon-hee, the former First Lady.
Okay, so a whole network of alleged financial wrongdoing.
And the sources suggest Han Hakja may have approved these activities. That's part of the investigation.
If we step back from the pure financials for a second, this must be incredibly difficult for followers. I mean, isn't this completely against the church's own teachings? Things like true family, the divine principle.
It cuts right to the heart of their theology. It's a fundamental contradiction. You have Han Hakja, who declared herself the heaven-born only begotten daughter, Doksun Yeo, and tried to, elevate founder Sun Myung-moon almost to godhood after he died.
Right.
And now she's facing criminal charges for things like embezzlement and gambling. For followers who put their faith in her, in that image, it's an immense betrayal, a profound theological shock.
And didn't Sun Myung-moon himself issue some warnings? I recall reading something about fallen archangels or
Yes, exactly. Harasha Tarakanchian Sajangdo, he apparently warned about them, and specifically about the danger of the mother, meaning Han Hapja acting on her own ideas, sort of going rogue.
So it's like
Mm.
some within the church might see this as a prophecy coming true, but in the worst possible way.
That's the angle one source takes. They call it a subjectivity inversion yurnjo, jiguansongjiando. Basically, a failure of responsibility, pride leading the spiritual authority to collapse. It suggests these internal warnings existed but were ignored, leading to what the source calls a painful, realistic catastrophe.
Okay, so the allegations are huge. The theological implications are massive. Let's talk legal consequences. If these charges stick, what could Han Hokja actually face?
The charges are very serious. Embezzlement, using church funds for personal stuff, that's Yoonyoungjo. Under the Criminal Act, that alone carries up to 10 years in prison or a 30 million won fine.
Okay, 10 years is significant, but I think you mentioned another law that could make things even worse.
You're right, that's the crucial part, legally speaking. It's the Aggravated Punishment for Specific Economic Crimes Act, or Yeonjo Tokyeondyop.
And why is that one so important here?
Because the alleged amount, 60 billion won, is way over the threshold. Anything over 5 billion won triggers this act, and for amounts over 50 billion won. The law specifies a minimum sentence of 5 years. It could even mean life imprisonment.
A minimum of 5 years. So
Yeah.
does that mean things like suspended sentences are off the table?
Generally, yes. For amounts over 5 billion KRW under this specific act, suspended sentences are usually not an option. So if she's convicted, the likelihood of actual prison time is very, very high.
Wow.
And there are other factors, aggravating factors, that judges would consider.
Like what?
Well, first, using embezzled money for personal entertainment, like gambling, is seen very negatively. Second, her status as a religious leader. That carries a higher expectation of ethical behavior, so a fall like this attracts much stronger social criticism. Both those things would likely lead to a harsher sentence.
What about her age? She's in her 80s, right? Could that help her in court?
It's possible her age and health might be considered as mitigating factors, sure. But given the sheer scale of the alleged crime and its nature, most legal analysts expect the impact of those factors to be pretty limited.
And are there other potential charges too?
Yeah, potentially separate charges just for habitual gambling. And then there are the international aspects. If she's a U.S. green card holder or citizen, a conviction like this in Korea could cause major problems, maybe even entry bans into the U.S.
Okay, so the legal side is grim. Let's pivot to the wider impact. We've talked legal, theological. But what does this mean for the Unification Church as a whole? For the people in it? This must have huge real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely massive. A huge ripple effect. You have to think about it from multiple angles. First, morally and spiritually.
Yeah.
Our sources are calling this the worst moral death sentence imaginable for a religious leader. It implies a total collapse of her spiritual authority. For followers, that means deep confusion, a sense of profound betrayal.
So you'd expect people to leave.
Definitely. An acceleration of departures is expected, especially, perhaps, among Japanese followers, who've been a huge base of support. The psychological impact globally could be immense.
And financially, if the leader is accused of embezzling millions.
It looks like a potential financial meltdown. You'd expect an immediate, sharp drop in donations. That triggers a severe financial crisis right away. Some forecasts are really stark, predicting congregation sizes could shrink from hundreds down to maybe just dozens in some places.
And that hits their businesses and assets too, right? They own quite a bit.
Yes, directly. Look at Moni Youngpyeong, the Result Complex. They're apparently already having trouble raising funds for operations. They just issued bonds worth 4.5 billion won, which suggests they were already stretched.
Okay, what else?
Lusangche, their luxury condo development, sales are expected to plummet. Ilwa, the ginseng and beverage company, could face collapse if Christian groups organize boycotts, which is seen as likely. One construction, probably closure, fewer internal projects. Fine Ridge Golf Course might need a fire sale, basically. And then there's talk of forced sales of major overseas assets like the New Yorker Hotel or key properties here like the Mampodong building.
Selling off the crown jewels, essentially.
Pretty much. And this kind of pressure, selling assets, it breeds internal conflict, doesn't it?
I'd imagine so. People disagreeing on what to sell when.
Exactly. We're seeing hints of that already. Dissent over asset sales, even movements in places like Japan, Europe, South America may be pushing for more independence from the central church.
And there was something about a lawsuit in the U.S., too.
Yeah, that adds another layer of financial risk. A recent loss in a lawsuit involving UCI, another church-related entity, could apparently lead to astronomical damages. This could really hurt their reliance on income from places like Park One, a major real estate holding. It messes up their whole financial model.
So financial crisis, internal dissent. What about the structure itself, the people working for the church?
That's heading towards organizational disintegration, is the fear. Mass layoffs seem almost inevitable for public officials, clergy, maybe by late 2025.
Why then specifically?
Well, there's an expected ruling from the Japanese High Court potentially ordering dissolution there, combined with Korean HQ simply running out of money. Key leaders like Yoon Won-ju and Yoon Young-ho are seen as likely facing prison themselves.
Anyone else caught up in this?
Lee Chung-woo, the chief secretary, he's got a travel ban now too, potential suspect status. There are separate allegations swirling around him involving draft dodging and maybe embezzlement through a mission in Central Asia run by his brother. It just keeps spreading.
And scandals like this, they often encourage more people to come forward, don't they? Whistleblowers.
That's the expectation, a potential surge in whistleblowing about corruption among local leaders. There are already rumors, apparently, like one about a foundation director diverting $1 billion. That kind of thing fuels enormous anger among the rank-and-file members when it comes out. It's like the whole thing starts unraveling from the inside.
Yeah. Which brings us to the really difficult part, the human cost. The social isolation, the suffering this causes for individuals.
Yeah, this is where it gets deeply concerning. There's potential for huge public anger, especially if, say, properties like the Cheonjeonggam Palace get raided and, well, one source mentioned finding hundreds of billions of KRW worth of jewels.
Like Imelda Marcos's shoes, that kind of imagery.
Exactly, that comparison was made. That would ignite a media firestorm and huge public backlash. You're looking at communities potentially severing ties with anyone connected to the church.
And for the members themselves, especially younger ones.
Increased suffering, definitely. Second-generation members might feel they have to hide their background, could face bullying. Adults in the workforce might face discrimination, lose jobs. It creates real hardship.
Emotionally, the toll must be immense.
Huge. You might see more people converting away, maybe to Christianity or Catholicism, and a definite spike in demand for psychological help, therapy for depression, especially among foreign followers in Korea who might feel particularly isolated.
And there were some really alarming fears mentioned in the sources, too.
Yes, and this is serious. The source raises fears of extreme acts against the church. They invoke the second or third Yamagami incidents, referencing Abe Shinzo's assassination. That's a terrifying prospect. And also, tragically, a potential increase in suicides among followers feeling lost or betrayed. These are the darkest potential consequences.
That's incredibly sobering. Finally, what about the institutions they run? The schools, universities?
They're likely in peril, too. Significant drops in applicants expected for places like Sunhwa Arts High School, Sunjong High School, Chinshim International Schools. That creates immediate operational crises.
And their university, Sunmoon University.
Projections are dire there, too. A massive shortfall in student enrollment predicted. It might even force the sale of the entire university foundation, likely at a knockdown price. Even the Universal Ballet, led by Moon Hoon-suk, another prominent figure, is considered likely to face dissolution.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really highlights an unprecedented scale of crisis, doesn't it? Legal, financial, moral, organizational, all hitting the Unification Church seemingly at once.
It really does. It paints a picture of incredibly rapid, simultaneous challenges across the board. What this shows, I think, is just how profoundly any organization, even one built on deep faith and spiritual ideas, can be shaken to its core when leadership faces challenges like this. Severe legal and ethical questions being asked.
It really makes you think about the nature of these kinds of movements.
Right. And what's fascinating and tragic is when the organization's own founder seemed to warn about exactly this kind of scenario, the subjectivity inversion, the fallen archangels. And now it looks less like a return to principles and more like, as the source put it, a painful, realistic catastrophe.
So the final question, maybe for you listening, is what does this all tell us about power, about accountability, about belief? Especially in this incredibly connected modern world where nothing stays hidden for long. Something to definitely keep thinking about.